Hi everyone, Kyle here from Wide Awake PH. In today's episode, we'll be talking about this flat bottom dripper, the SUJI CHIHIRO. If you remember, we did a review of this dripper, the original SUJI Wave. You can think of this as version 1 of this dripper. If you remember in that review, we were pretty so-so with it. It's a good budget pick, but you can definitely find better performing brewers out there. But if you were looking for a flat bottom dripper budget that would perform very similarly to the classic Kalita Wave, then this would have been a good pick. But fast forward a couple of months from that review, SUJI decided to update their brewer with this, the SUJI CHIHIRO. Some notable changes include one, aesthetics of course. Instead of offering it in just this clear version, what they've decided to do was offer it in multiple different colors in this very interesting sort of paint-like or spray paint-like looking finish. I found the blue to be the most attractive, that's why we chose the blue dripper. And also matches Wide Awake's colors. Besides the cosmetics, what's really interesting with the SUJI CHIHIRO is that they changed the whole structure of the brewer, therefore changing the brewing dynamics of the dripper. Previously, they were very much inspired by the Kalita Wave. So you had this triangle-shaped filter holder and 3 very small holes. Very slow flow rate. But now, taking a page from April, which we'll get back to, the April coffee brewer, what they did was they have these three lines that serve as the filter paper holder so that it won't create like a vacuum effect here in the center, as well as a pretty large, I think 9mm hole right down in the center. If you're familiar with the April brewer, you can see that the filter holder as well as the hole is very similar. And why is that? It's because reportedly SUJI is the manufacturer behind April's plastic dripper. So that's why. But you would say, hey, isn't that bad? Aren't they ripping April off? No, they're not. Why? Because it performs so differently compared to the April brewer. So I think just from that insight alone, I think that's already very fun, right? Because look, you'd think that these two would perform very similarly. This could have been maybe like a budget April pick, but it's not. Because in terms of performance, the April brewer is a slow dripper. It's meant to match April Coffee's style of coffee, meaning they like slow extractions, they like a really nice and gentle kind of flavor presentation, clean, crisp, clear. That's their style. But with the SUJI CHIHIRO dripper, it's actually very different. The flow rate is very fast. So what we're seeing when testing is that the dripper has a very fast, even, consistent flow rate, even from the first pour, second pour, third pour. It's performing very consistently. It's actually very reminiscent of the Timemore B75 dripper that we really love used here in Wide Awake. In this episode, we'll talk about, we'll show you a sample recipe that we've found great success with across a large variety of our coffees, and talk about the dripper's pros and cons and help you decide if this is a brewer that is worthy to add to your collection. Let's begin brewing. We're using a standard Kalita Wave filter paper, size 155, the small one. The thing with this is you have to really position and place the filter properly into the brewer. And when you're preheating, you have to take care and pour slowly from the center, working your way to the sides. That's because if you rush this step, the filter paper will deform. That's just one con in terms of the workflow for this dripper. Unlike the B75, the dripper from Timemore, those have filter holders that really keep the filter paper in place, and it just makes pre-wetting the filter, and dialing in a breeze. So why is this detail important? It's important because if the filter paper is so deformed, then it will affect the way you brew your coffee, right? And sometimes if you're sleepy, you were careless, and you poured water the wrong way, and the filter paper deforms, it's a bad time. There's no real way to fix the positioning of the filter paper. You just have to dump the filter paper and do it again, which is a waste of money and resources. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about this coffee and the sample recipe. So the coffee we're using now is Mount Apple 72-hour anaerobic natural. We've been roast profiling this on our new roaster, and man, the results have been really, really good. Getting really nice, clean and crisp flavor presentation with the new roaster with this coffee. So what we're doing differently with this dripper is that we are grinding finer. We are grinding finer because of the fast flow rate. I would say the approach is rather similar as compared to the B75. We will do a 13-gram dose of Mount Apple 72, and then we will do 200 ml as well. So that's around the 15.5 sort of ratio. And then we will do 3 pours, 70 ml, 70 ml, 60 ml. All circle pours to really bring up the flavor intensity, because this coffee can handle the higher extraction. In terms of grind size, we're grinding on the medium level. It is around 50 on the ZP6. Before we were grinding around 46 on the P75, but I've really found that I'm enjoying my brews at a slightly coarser grind size. So again, like 50 or 48 to 52 on these faster drippers, just because we enjoy the lower bitterness and the higher flavor clarity that this particular grind size range is giving, especially when it comes to these lighter roasted coffees. All right, so the water temp is at 95 degrees Celsius. We're bringing the brewing temperature up so as to bring about more sweetness. Okay, so first pour, all circle pour. If you'll notice, the flow rate is rather fast on this brewer. And that is an advantage and a disadvantage. It is an advantage because it allows us to really play around with our grind size and pouring technique. When we're brewing coffee, the way we pour our water is extremely important. So with our ability to really control this flow rate, we can fine-tune the kinds of flavors we're getting with this brewer. That means if I'm going to grind finer, I have the ability to pour less times. So like, let's say I want to grind fine, I want to extract more, but I can pour twice only, like do a 2-pour recipe so that it won't be so thick and it won't be so bitter in the palate. But I can also grind coarser, right? So, I told you we were grinding at 46 before with the B75. We can do the same here, but I'm grinding coarser at 52 and pouring more. So 3 pours, even 4 pours, to have a more intense flavor experience, because the more pours we do, the more we extract, generally speaking, because we're increasing contact time between water and coffee. So what we find with this brewer is that it makes a consistently rounded and sweet cup of coffee. I wouldn't say that acidity dominates the flavor perception in this cup of coffee. It's well-rounded, right? We get a nice clear and crisp acidity, but it's not super clean and crisp like the cafe flour 2-pour recipe I was sharing with you before. And then the body is, of course, much more intense than the 2-pour recipe. I wouldn't say like it's so thick and viscous. It presents itself more as like a jammy kind of vibe. Like, it's like a medium sort of weight, whereas the cafe 2-pour recipe was a lighter weight on the palate. As this is cooling down, I'd like to explain or elaborate on some of the cons of this brewer. One con is that there is water or coffee still present here in the base of the brewer that there's still liquid there. So that's one downside. Another downside or con of this brewer is that it is rather small. So that kind of limits your creativity in terms of your pouring structure, because let's say you wanted to pour so much water in the first pour, right? 150 ml, for example, and you're dosing up maybe 14, 15, 16 grams. Then you have the risk of completely filling up this brewer with water such that it's about to overflow. So that's kind of one big con, depending on the person, right? If you are the type of person to brew big doses, you're brewing for 2 people, for example, then this isn't for you. But if you're the type of person who likes brewing, 10 to 14 grams only, and doing this kind of like 3-pour structure, then it's not even a problem. Actually, those are just the 2 cons that I'm thinking about. So I'd say that I'm actually very happy with this brewer. It is fast, has a consistent flow rate. The cups are sweet, rounded, clean presentation in terms of the acidity. We have a good amount of flexibility when it comes to our pouring technique or brewing style. The big enemy or the big competitor of this brewer for me, if you're going to cross-shop between the two, is the B75. Just because the flavor presentation of both of these coffees are so similar. Like, if we did the exact same recipe on these two and you blindfolded me, I would be extremely hard-pressed to tell the difference between the two. It is really that similar. The flow rate is very similar. The vibe of the cup is very similar. I'd say if you were choosing between the two, these are some points for you to consider. Number 1, this is bigger. If you're gonna brew coffee for 2 people, then of course this will be your choice. But the SUJI Wave answers back in that it has more colors. It is potentially cuter. It doesn't age this way. So if you get the clear version of the B75, you can see it's stained. It doesn't look as aesthetically pleasing. A lot of people want to have gear or coffee equipment that is beautiful or cute to look at. And at this point, the price point is so similar to one another. I think they're just 100 or 200 peso difference. Maybe, I think this is like 800, 900, and this is like 600, 700, somewhere there. You can check on Shopee. Very, very similar, to the point that I would say it doesn't make much sense to have both in your collection. I'm just coffee crazy. Don't follow me. If you're a normal person or more normal than I am, just choose one. Which you like, that will really depend on your taste, because they can really brew very similar cups of coffee. Oh, sorry, one more. One more pro for the B75 is the filter holder. Because of these ridges, preheating the paper filter is so much easier on this thing. If looks aren't so much your thing, then I would just choose the B75, to be honest with you. It's easier workflow, bigger capacity, more flexibility. Materials-wise also, like, it's slightly thicker. It's a thicker gauge plastic, so slightly higher quality than this. But essentially, that's it. Another interesting point of comparison, like in terms of brewers, is the Chihiro versus the original SUJI Wave. Again, as I said in the intro, it's very different. Very different kind of cup profile. This heavily biases body because of the very slow flow rate. So if you like your coffees to be clean, crisp, in terms of the flavor presentation of the acidity, this won't be the best pick. But if you want like an easy mode level of brewer, as in, you have a very small grind size range to work with, and you really don't want to mind your pouring technique so much, then this is great, right? Don't upgrade or don't buy another one if you have one already. But if you're the type of coffee nerd who likes playing around with your pouring technique, you like changing around your grind size, right? You're obsessed about tracking the flow rate of your of your pouring, then this is great. Because again, as I said, you can really modulate your grind size and pair that with an appropriate flow rate to really fine-tune the kind of coffee you'll get in your cup. So, because of the fast flow rate, it has that flexibility. Meaning, it's up to you, like you and your technique, and your recipe that will actually really determine how good your coffee is. So the skill level or the skill cap on this brewer is higher. That doesn't mean that it's hard to get good coffee with this thing. It just means you can get way tastier cups of coffee the better you get at coffee brewing, if that's something you're interested in. The same can be said with the B75, by the way, just to be clear. Now that the coffee is cool, let's get to tasting. Again, this is Mount Apo 72, one of our best sellers here at Wide Awake. So I just dialed this in with the Kaffek flour for my personal enjoyment. So the flavor balance on that is still very clear in my mind. If you have one and you brew it the way we do, that presents itself as very clean, crisp, low body. Like the flavor balance is more heavily lean towards the acidity. This one, it's more well-rounded. You get the unique taste notes of this coffee, but we're adding a lot of body relative to the Kaffek flour. The body presents itself as creamy, jammy, more lush. So very, very enjoyable cup of coffee. If you like your coffee well balanced, meaning you get everything basically: flavor intensity, acidity, body, I'd highly recommend having one in your collection because it just opens up more flavor potential or flavor outcomes for the coffees you're brewing. Okay, so that's it for our review of the SUJI CHIHIRO. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. That will help us out tremendously. Thank you.